Hello, and welcome to Portland, Oregon, one of the most unique cities in America. I've just taken an 8-hour bus ride down from Vancouver in Canada. You'll know if you watched my last video. Now, we've all heard something about Portland. Some of it good, some of it not so good. So join me as we'll explore the city to figure out what it's really like. Let's go. So right now, we're in the eastern half of the city, in a neighborhood called Buckman, which is where I booked my hostel. Now, I've got a dorm for about 6 people. However, it seems like I'm the only one there, and I haven't really seen anyone else at the hostel either. I don't really know what that says about the state of tourism in the city, but I guess I've basically got myself a hotel room now. So, the eastern half of Portland, on the eastern side of the Willamette River, is pretty much all low-density housing like this. However, there is one famous site here as well, and we're on our way there right now. So, Portland was founded in the 1840s, back when the Pacific Northwest was known as the Oregon Country, joint controlled by both the US and Great Britain. Back then, pioneers from the eastern states used to cross the infamous Oregon Trail in search of cheap land here in the West. And that trail ended nearby in the town of Oregon City. And it was actually 2 businessmen from Oregon City that founded Portland in 1845. Now, what was interesting was that Portland's name was decided by a coin flip. But we'll talk more on that later. We've now arrived on Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard, one of Portland's most beloved and characterful streets. This street here is the hotspot for the city's hippie movement, with this stretch of the boulevard being filled with locally owned businesses, boutiques, restaurants, and gift stores. And the Hawthorne area is one of the most popular spots in the city for the locals thanks to its unique atmosphere. Now, if you didn't know, Portland is known as one of the most liberal cities in the US, and the Hawthorne area is kind of the physical embodiment of this culture, with walkable streets, small locally owned boutiques, and a lively art scene. The street is a great place to come grab some food, coffee, or maybe a craft beer. The street also has tons of little independent bookstores, which it is actually quite famous for. Now, the Hawthorne neighborhood isn't officially a district of the city, but the distinct bohemian culture around the street has made it colloquially known as its own neighborhood by the locals. The neighborhood started out as part of the city of East Portland, which was its own city before it was annexed into Portland in the 1890s. The street itself was named after James Hawthorne, who co-founded the city's first mental asylum, which once stood on the street. It was originally called U Street and then Asylum Avenue, but as the locals thought that this name was a little distasteful, it was finally renamed to Hawthorne in 1888. The street was then connected to downtown by streetcar, which made it one of the busiest streets in East Portland, leading a lot of stores and restaurants to open up along the street. Eventually, the streetcar services on the boulevard were ended, but Hawthorne remained one of the busiest streets in the city. Then, in the 1960s, the growing counterculture scene from San Francisco started to take root in Portland, leading to a large influx of hippies in the city, and Hawthorne Boulevard became one of the centers for this hippie movement in Portland. And even after that movement started to dwindle in the 1980s, the street's number of vintage stores, bars, and cafes made it remain a popular spot for the city's youth culture. But let's now continue on with our tour of the city and start heading downtown. I don't know whose bright idea was to put basketball hoops in a parking lot. That's not something you see every day. I just thought you needed to see this. Let's now take a bus across the river to the western half of the city, where downtown is located, because it's a little too far away to walk to, and it's definitely a lot cheaper than an Uber. Portland actually has one of the most extensive public transport networks in the US, including both buses and light rail. But even still, just like most of America, only a small fraction of Portland residents actually use the network for their commutes. We're now crossing the Burnside Bridge into downtown. Now, Portland has a lot of different nicknames, and one of these is Bridgetown, thanks to the number of bridges that cross the Willamette River between downtown and East Portland. Other popular nicknames for the city are PDX, after the airport code for the Portland International Airport, Rose City, because apparently the city loves roses that much, and Stumptown, because apparently during the first few years of the city's life, the town was growing so rapidly that they didn't have the manpower to clean up all the tree stumps they were creating. But that brings us to downtown. Let's get off the bus and explore a bit. We've gotten off next to the Pioneer Courthouse Square, creatively named for the Pioneer Courthouse that sits right next to the plaza. The square is locally known as Portland's Living Room, and as we speak, it's getting ready to host some sort of a festival. Now, like promised, let's discuss the naming of the city, which was done by flipping a coin. See, the two main founders of the city were Asa Lovejoy of Boston, Massachusetts, and Francis Pettygrove of Portland, Maine. They both wanted to name the city after their respective hometowns, but when they couldn't come to an agreement on which one to choose, they decided to make that decision through a best-of-3 coin toss. Now, obviously Pettygrove from Portland won the toss, which is why this city isn't called Boston, Oregon. The downtown of Portland is compact and quiet, and there's been an effort to make the streets pleasant to walk on. A lot of the core's historical buildings have also been preserved, which is quite nice. There's also no shortage of public modern art installations like this one, and this one. Now, the city has become quite famous in the US for its own distinct local culture. The citizens even have their own motto, "Keep Portland Weird," and the citizens here live up to that motto. One of the weirdest icons of Portlandian culture is the Unipiper, who rides around the city on a unicycle wearing a Darth Vader mask while blowing a bagpipe. Anyway, let's next move to one of the most characterful neighborhoods in the city. This here is the Pearl District, a former industrial area which was turned into a mixed residential and commercial neighborhood in the 1980s. It's now known as an upscale neighborhood with an emphasis on the arts, and just like advertised, the district is full of modern apartment buildings, small boutiques, cafes, and art studios. Now, this area is also kinda expensive, like you might have imagined. I just got myself a $10 milkshake from an ice cream bar, so definitely be ready for that if you ever decide to come here. I also gotta say that, at least in the summer, the city is very hot. It's about 40 degrees Celsius right now, or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And the genius I am, I forgot to pack shorts for my trip, so I'm strolling around the city in my jeans. As for the district, this is a very charming area, clean and not too busy. I've really liked hanging out here, despite the milkshakes being a little bit too pricey for my liking. But now, I think we should swing by downtown one last time to check out our last major site for this tour. We're now in the western end of downtown, and our next location is all the way on the eastern end, so we'll go through downtown one more time. Now, I gotta say, overall, Portland has been a very positive experience. It doesn't have the famous sights of Seattle and Vancouver that we've been visiting for the past week, but it does have its own charm. The downtown, Hawthorne, and Pearl District are very nice places to hang out. However, the Old Town area that I passed through when I got to the city was quite run down, which is also why I didn't decide to film there. But to end our tour, I can't think of a much better place than the river that gave the city its life. The Willamette and its deep harbor is what allowed Portland to become one of the largest inland port cities in the world. And today, you can walk alongside it in this park they've set up next to it. As for me, tomorrow I'm gonna head to the airport to catch a plane to the last location on this trip. I'll see you there.